this class is for everyone. For a beginner, it will be very, very beneficial to look into the very common yoga postures. What are the alignments and what are the common mistakes that we tend to do? And for people who have been practicing yoga for some time, it is always good to come back to the basics, to realign, to refine some of the movements, some of the elements in your common basic postures, so that your foundation is very, very strong and clear, and then you can build up on that and move into more advanced practice. Okay, so enjoy the class, and just a few very, very common postures that we see regularly in your yoga practice. First one, Tadasana. Okay, it is a simple standing posture, but a lot of things can go into making this Tadasana better and better, right? First and foremost, see that your ear and your shoulder are in one line and your head is not jacking forward. So if you're not aware of your posture, if you're just starting, maybe you're like this with your shoulders forward and your head forward. So make sure that you push your head back, not lifting it up, not down. Your chin should be parallel to the floor, and make sure that your shoulders are rolled back and down, right? The chest is broad. The shoulders are not covering the chest because that affects the proper functioning of the lungs and the heart. So shoulders broad, chest broad, and your head back. What about here? So if you are very bendy in the back, this is how you can be, with your tailbone moving upwards, okay? And there can be hyperextension in the knee, causing a lot of joint pains or a joint problem at the knee, okay? So what you do is think that your navel is not pointing down, but your navel is pointing up towards the chest. As soon as you correct this pelvic movement or this pelvic stability, you will have your tailbone going down. And notice how the hyperextension in the knee has also reduced. So I'll again show you the wrong way and then the correct way. So this is the wrong way, where your hips are moving up and back. Somebody who is very, very flexible in the lower back, this tends to happen if they are not aware of your body. And notice it's like a locking of the knees, hyperextension. So instead of figuring and correcting that out from the knee, try to do it from the pelvis. Okay, this is more of an anterior tilt of the pelvis. So bring it into a neutral pelvis. This is neutral pelvis. To understand neutral pelvis, your navel moving up towards the chest, your tailbone automatically going down. What is a tailbone? Imagine a tail. Okay, so now the tail is pointing down. Here the tail is pointing up. So the tail or the tailbone tucked under, and notice the hyperextension in the knee is also reduced. Now come down all the way to the feet. Your feet should be parallel to each other with a little gap between the feet. You should not stand like with your toes out. If you look down right now and if you had not corrected it, in all probability we are all standing like this if we are not aware. So turn and roll the toes in. That will bring about a little more activation in the leg muscles. You will feel that your legs muscles are actively working. Tuck your tailbone under, draw the chest up, roll your shoulders back, and see that your head is not jacking forward. And then be in your Tadasana and enjoy being in Tadasana. So this is how you should start, whether you're starting in Surya Namaskar, whether you're starting in your standing postures, any of the postures, this is how you start. Now we are going to look into a few standing postures, very, very important. Very commonly, we see Virabhadra Asana 2 in our practice regularly again and again. So if we have to start from a starting point, which is the Tadasana, feet together, you can just jump out, or if you're doing it in a Vinyasa flow, you will be coming into this pose from down dog. So let me show you from Tadasana. So I am in Tadasana, and then from there I spread my legs apart. So the legs should be about 3.5 to 4 feet apart. If I'm doing my Virabhadra Asana 2 or the Warrior 2 on the right leg, the right foot has to turn all the way towards the short end of the mat. The arch or the heel of the front foot and the arch of the back foot should be in one line. How can you check that? In the beginning, for a few days, you can go to the back of the mat, you can step the heel out, and you can find the line of the mat as your reference. So the front heel and the arch of the back foot in one line. So if you are standing on the center of the mat, your foot should not be behind the front foot, or this is how mostly many of us are if you are not aware. I'm exaggerating this distance just to make you understand. So the front heel or the right heel and the arch of the back foot is in one straight line. Very, very, very important. Then from there, the back foot should not be turned out because this again causes hyperextension in the knee joint. So turn your foot also slightly in. You will have better control on the rotation of the hip, and also that will take away the pressure from the knee. Now, when I'm turning my right foot out, I'm not turning my hip up along with the foot. Both sides of the hip remains facing forward. Watch my hands. Is that clear? And the right foot is not diagonal. It is completely turned out. Then from here, start bending your knee. Bring your attention to the knee. For most of us, the knee is bending or leaning forward. It is dropping in the front because we are not aware of our inner thighs working. Your kneecap or the center of the knee should be pointing towards your big toe and the second toe. So always it should be pointing towards the big toe and the second toe. And then you should stretch your hands out. In all probability, this hand comes down like this. Make sure that your back hand is also up. One last point in your Virabhadra Asana 2. If your distance between the two legs is short, then you will overstep the ankle. So this is known as overstepping the ankle, where the knee is crossing the ankle. It causes a lot of load in the knee. So make sure that your legs are pretty wide so that when you bend your right leg, your knee is just above the ankle and it is not overstepping the ankle. And then make sure your hips are squared. You don't have your posture like this with one hip going back, one hip forward. So for this, bring in your awareness into this part and then extend the hands and finally turn your head and look over your right shoulder. Don't forget to keep smiling. So even though the body is feeling the work, you should not show it on the face. So this was Warrior 2 or Virabhadra Asana 2. You can always stop the video, you can rewind the video and go back and look into the points that we have discussed. To come back, you can just step the feet and come back to the original position. Try and repeat all of this on the left side, keeping the same points in the mind and keep refining it every time that you practice. Good. Let's move on to another posture, Parshvakonasana or side angle stretch. So once again, take your feet wide apart, starting from Tadasana. Again, I'm doing on my right side. So turn the right foot out to the right. The front heel and the arch of the back foot in straight line. Remember what I told in the last posture. Your back foot should not be rotated out. Turn it in. That takes away the pressure from the knee. So do it the wrong way, feel it in the leg, and then do it the right way and feel it in the leg. Now from here, again, this is a wide stance. Both sides of the hip is pointing forward. Now if your inner thighs are tight, you might be like this. So I will turn this side so that you can understand what I'm trying to show. So again, Tadasana in the body. So there should not be your tailbone lifted up, tailbone lifted down. Okay? So see, from here, this is hyperextending my leg, my knee also. Tailbone tucked under, and then I'm using more of my muscles rather than pressing into the joints. So make sure when you're standing, you're not standing like this, and you're standing like this. So coming back, the front view, I have done the checkpoints. So the front heel and the back arch in the same line. I'm bending my leg, my knee over the ankle, I'm not overstepping. Both sides of the hip is facing forward. So the same Virabhadra Asana 2. From here, we will take Parshvakonasana. Now for a beginner, you can keep your hand on the thigh and you can stretch your hand up or here. First, let us look at the shoulder and the hand. If you don't have awareness of the body, here you will dump all the weight into the shoulder. See this? So you're putting all the weight into the shoulder and into the hand and you're doing this. This against this. Okay? This is a weak body. This is a strong, active, alert body. So not here, but here. Your hands can be up or here. Your hand should not cover your face or your chest. Rotate the top shoulder back. Okay? Another thing, your hip should not be jutting out. That happens when you don't use your right thigh too much. And this pose demands that you really use your right thigh. So bend into the right leg, lower the hip down, and then stretch and stay here. This is your first option. When you build this up nicely, when you get better and better here, look at the straight line from the finger down the heel. My hip is not coming in the way. Okay? So I'm really bending my right leg, coming into a deep Parshvakonasana. Once this gets better, I'm here. But I'm not here. I am here. You can place a block under the right palm to get that lift in the body. And then slowly come up and then come back into Tadasana. Do the same thing on the left side, of course, to balance your practice. I will just grab a block and I'll come. We will need it in few of the postures. So we looked into Virabhadra Asana 2. We looked into Parshvakonasana, two of the very, very common postures, and we tend to make a lot of mistakes in both the postures. Now from here, let's go into Virabhadra Asana 1. So if I'm standing in my Tadasana, if I have to take Virabhadra Asana 1 on my right leg, I take my left leg back. Whenever you take one leg front and one leg back, when you are an advanced practitioner, then you can keep both the feet in the same line. It is okay because you have that strength and you have the practice to balance. But as a beginner, if you keep the front foot and the back foot in the same straight line, you will find it difficult to balance. So what do I do? How do I support this? I move my right foot slightly to the right side, left leg to the left. So they are no longer in a straight line, they are staggered. Okay, then I can have a good foundation, I can stay. Now, what happens? Common mistakes. When we do this foot is turned this side. Look at the hip, they are going diagonal. See my hand, they are not in the straight line. So for this, I have to turn the left hip forward. If my foot continues facing this side, to turn the hip forward, I'm causing a lot of stress on my knee, ankle and the hip joint. So instead, what do? I pivot the foot. So I turn the foot. Okay, so now all the 10 toes are pointing in the same direction. Watch my hands, both sides of the hip is pointing forward. Again, tailbone tucked under and then straighten. This will stretch your hip flexors. See that you are not bending like this. So tailbone tucked under, belly hugging in. Bend into the front leg. Okay. Now when you're bending into the front leg, make sure you're not here. Most of us are here because we don't want to work too much in the thigh. It is a little painful, right? You have to put in effort. So make sure that you're really bending where your knee and your hip come in one straight line. And the front knee and ankle in a straight line. Pressing the heel onto the back, stretch your hands up. But don't do this. See, this is another common mistake. Too much of arch in the lower back causing a lot of discomfort in the lower back. To avoid that, bend that back leg, push your tailbone under, lift the chest up, and then only slowly straighten the leg, but keep the bend in the front leg. Your front knee should be pointing towards the first toe, the big toe and the second toe. Your knee should not buckle in. The knee should not point inside the toe. It should be pointing towards the toe. And then stretch and enjoy Virabhadra Asana 1 or Warrior 1. Slowly and gently, you can come back and stand in Tadasana. I hope that was good information and you can actually adapt it and correct it in your practice. Moving on to the forward bend. Okay, we do a lot of forward bends in our class. How do we do the forward bend? If you're not aware or if your body is not ready, maybe you're aware but your body is not ready. When we go into a forward bend, we go down like this. See my back, how it is rounded? But the forward bend should be forward, not down, not dumping down. So it should be forward, 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 and then down. How do you achieve this if your body is not ready? No matter how much you try, you don't get a flat back. So what do? You can modify the posture by bending the knees. As soon as you bend the knees, you have more flexibility, space, and room to send your hips back and send your chest forward. If your legs are straight, you might come here. Especially if the hamstrings and the glute muscles are very tight, it is going to restrict this movement. Okay, because your hamstrings are not ready, it's not going to allow this to happen. It will keep you here. So what do? You take the hamstrings out of the picture by bending the knees. Bend the knees, move your body down. Now see how I have a flat back, not a round back. So I'm moving my hips back, my chest forward. Okay, and then I keep going down, bring the hands down. Maybe in the beginning you're here, right? Slowly you straighten, 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 pull your abdomen in and go into a deep forward bend. Another common mistake in the forward bend, your hips going behind the heels. Again, too much pressure on the back of the knee, hyperextension automatically. It's like when you wear very, very high heels. This is the same leg position. It is not good for the knees at all because all the pressure is felt in the knee joint, nothing in the muscles surrounding the knees. So what do? You transfer the weight forward and then go down with a little micro bend in the knees only. Now you feel it more into the thighs and into the muscles below the knee. To come out, bend the knees and then slowly come up, stretch, exhale and come down. Hope that explains how to do a forward bend. It is similar when you do a seated forward bend also, okay? When we do a seated forward bend, the main principle of forward bend is that the pelvis needs to move. If your pelvis does not move, only your spine moves, see how it is, okay? But if you learn how to move your pelvis, then you can come into a deep forward bend. So when you sit down on the floor, again, if you have very, very tight hamstrings, you will find that people are sitting like this. There is no way, how much ever they try, they are not able to do this because this hamstring muscle is pulling the back down. So even though the teacher is screaming and shouting on the top of the lungs, and you know that you have to do it correct, you think you're doing it correct, but if the teacher takes a picture and sends it to you, this is how you will be in comparison to this. And then from here, when you do a forward bend, you are trying to just pull the shoulder forward. The chest is not going anywhere. You're just trying to reach forward with your shoulders. And there is too much of pain then in the shoulder and the neck. Because what the hip and the chest had to do, the shoulder and the neck is doing. The hip is not moved from the place, the chest is not moved from the place. Okay? What it should be, that your hip should go back, the chest should go forward. In the previous one, the chest and the hip stays in a straight line, and then you're just trying to move the hands and the head forward. No. So the entire trunk has to lean forward. The entire trunk. So stretch it forward, keep your hands here. For many days, this can be your forward bend. This can be your Paschimottanasana. No worries. No worries. As you build up your practice, then gently and slowly you start going forward, keeping the chest forward and the shoulders back. Another thing that you can do here, if you find that there is no movement in the pelvis at all, the pelvis and the trunk has got stuck, it's a great idea to elevate your hips, your pelvis. So take a block or take a good cushion or a pillow, a hard one, not a very soft one. Don't sit on the back edge of the block. Then again, your body will be leaning back. Sit on the front edge of the block. See, automatically now the body is leaning forward. So what is happening? The tilt has already happened. The forward bend has already happened without you doing anything. So as soon as you sit on the block, especially in the front edge, watch again. If you sit into the back edge, this is how your body can be. As soon as you come to the front edge of the block or the pillow, you have that little tilt in the body, and then you have more space to go deep into the forward bend in the right way. I hope it is understood. But when you're sitting on the block, make sure you place a roll towel under the knee. Because again, when you're elevating the hip and your legs are straight, your knee joint is going into hyperextension. So if it is already little hyperextended, it will further add the hyperextension, which is not good for the knee joint. So slightly a roll towel so that your knee can be lifted and then you move into your forward bend would be an ideal way to go into a forward bend. I hope you got that. Excellent. Let's move on. Let's move on to a few other postures which I see regularly students making a mistake in the class. Not only the beginners, even the students who've been practicing since a long time, because somewhere the body or the mind has not adapted to the fine tuning of the poses. Let's look into another pose. Okay, very commonly we do this in all fours and we do this in standing also. Right leg back, we do it in lying down also. Okay, lifting the right leg up. We tend to turn the hip out. Why this is happening? We tend to turn the thigh out. This is happening because the hamstring muscles are weak. Okay, that is why it happens. So what ideally this position should be? Okay, before we get into that, how should your all fours be? Sorry, let's come back to first all fours. How should your all fours be? Your all fours should not be like this. This is dumping all your body weight into the shoulder joint and into the lower back, which is not good. Also, bending the arm. So keep the arm straight and push the body up and take your belly in. This is how it should be. Unless you've asked to arch your back for a different posture, that's a different thing. But otherwise, most of the movements which you start from all fours, it should be your body, chest lifted, your belly in. If you keep your body dumped down, where your body is not actively working, where gravity is pulling the body down, it just gets into the joints. But you want the joints to stay healthy and you want the muscles and the body to work. Here you have to work. That is why many people, they find it very comfortable just to be here. And they will do all the postures from here, which is not good at all. So first, push, protract, right? Now coming back to what we were discussing, right leg back. Raise your right leg straight up. See that you're not turning the thigh towards the side. Your thigh, the right thigh should be facing down and then stay here. Whether you're doing it in this posture or you're doing it in your Shalabhasana, when you're raising the leg, make sure that you're not raising the leg and turning the hip. Your thigh is facing down towards the floor. Or when you're doing it in your Virabhadra Asana 3. Very, very common mistake in Virabhadra Asana 3. I'll show you with the blocks. Watch the leg and the hip. So when you do your Virabhadra Asana 3 modified, my hands are on the floor. In actual Virabhadra Asana 3, your hands are up in the air. If we are not aware, what do we do in Virabhadra Asana 3? We lift the leg and watch the hip and the thigh. Your right thigh should be moving towards your left thigh. So not outside, not external rotation, but your thigh should be in, okay? Do this and see the effect on the left leg and the right leg, and then turn the right hip inwards and see the effect in the glutes, left leg and right leg. You find it more active, okay? So remember this, when you do any of the extension poses, where your legs are extending up, remember this point, clear? Let's move on. Let's move on to a very common posture that we see a lot in the yoga flow. Downward facing dog, Adho Mukha Svanasana. Lots of things to work on. First and foremost, as we always say, all the instructors at Anahata we mention, whenever your palms are on the mat, spread your fingers out. Don't keep your fingers locked together. This is a very small surface area. This increases the surface area. So the load of the body gets equally distributed. If you're here, the load will be only on the wrist and you will have a wrist pain very, very soon. So what you do, you spread your fingers out, shoulders above your wrist, not here, okay? Shoulders above the wrist, shoulders can go slightly forward, that is okay. Now for your downward facing dog, tuck your toes in and so I'll show you the right downward facing dog. Your right downward facing dog is this. Okay, this is your downward. If somebody cannot do this, you will find people being here. Okay, so you have to be completely aware that your shoulders are not towards the wrist, but your shoulders are going back. You can bend the knees and use that to move the shoulders behind the wrist, taking your hips up and back, not keeping the hips down and the body down. So it is like an inverted V. So you move your hips up and back, stretch your hands, look towards your knees. Then maybe for some of us, the heels will touch the floor. For most of us, it will not, it is okay. But see that now you push your thighs back. In the beginning, you can stay here. So you might find some of us doing down dog with the back rounded. So you really need to stretch. See the stretch? This will really stretch the arms, the shoulders, the armpit area, the spine. Draw your abdomen in and then straighten the legs. Okay? Another thing that you have to do with your arms have to externally rotate. So the shoulder should not go towards the ears. The shoulder should move away from the ears and down. This is known as external rotation. If you draw an arrow mark with the head of the arrow inwards, the arrow should go in more. So when your arm is going in, it is externally rotating the shoulders. So see the action in my shoulders. I will show this with your knees bent and then maybe with straight legs. You can try with knees bent. So knees bent, wrap your triceps in, okay? So roll your triceps in. Don't have the arms facing out like this, not good for the shoulders. So roll your triceps in. Another way to understand, your triceps should be facing your thigh. Your triceps should not face the sides. Your triceps should face the thigh. Spread the fingers out. Ideally, the middle finger pointing towards the short end of the mat. But if you have tight shoulders, it is okay to have the index finger pointing towards the front of the mat. Okay? So you come, get into your down dog, draw your abdomen in, move your hips, and then roll your triceps in. Roll your triceps in, getting little more space in the shoulders and the arms, and then going into your downward facing dog. And keep a good distance between the feet. Slowly bring your knees down and slowly release and relax. How is it going so far? Too much of information? You don't have to process all the information in one day. Okay? Little information. Keep improving in your postures day after day, and that is how you advance in your practice. Looking into another position, the plank position, especially looking what the shoulders are doing and what the back is doing. So a good preparation for plank is all fours. If your posture, the quality of your posture is good in all fours, you can carry that in the plank. And it is easy to correct it in all fours because in plank the knees are lifted. Your body is more loaded. When the knees are down, the body does not bear so much of weight. So it is easy for you to correct the positions and the postures. So when in all fours, you don't start the plank like this. So if your body is here and you do the plank with your body like this is how the plank will look. See my lower back, see the area in the upper back. This is going to not help you in any way. It is going to cause more damage. So how do you correct your plank? Instead of in cow, you have to be in the cat. This is known as the cat position. So now your belly is hugging in, your tailbone is tucked under. Okay, there is no compression in the lower back. In fact, you're creating space in the lower back. And in between the shoulder blades, you're creating space. You're moving the shoulder blades away from each other. In your back bends, you need the shoulder blades to come close to each other. In your forward bends, arm balances, you want the shoulder blades to be protracted away from each other. So this is how your body position should be. Not this, not this. This is how your body position should be, okay? Not like this, shoulders plugged in and then really pushing. So palms on the floor, not in the cow stretch, like the arch in the back. My arms are straight as you can see. Keeping the arms straight, push, protract the body up. Let's do this 2 more times. So just keep your body dumped on the floor, on the joints, and then use and activate your body by lifting it up and then drawing your abdomen in. See that little bit of dome shape in the body. Let's do that once again. Inhale and then push, protract. Keep the shape in the body, stretch your right leg. Don't stay on the toes. Come into the space behind the toes. Don't keep the knees bent, knees lifted. You are not here, remember. So be here. Now when you are here, step this. Don't take your hips up. See the shoulders. How do you know that it is wrong? When the shoulders is not aligned on the wrist. So the shoulders aligned over the wrist, maybe slightly forward. Inner thigh squeezing and stay here. Don't bring your hips down. Don't arch your back. Tuck your tailbone under, belly hugging in, push, protract and stay. Okay? So this is how you practice plank. So it's a good idea to correct the position or the posture of the plank in all fours, and from there you take it into plank. Is that clear? I hope the plank is understood very, very well. Wonderful. Let's look into a few other postures which we see very, very commonly in the class that you make mistakes. Let's look into a twist posture, okay? Very important. So whatever principles of twist that I am demonstrating or I'm sharing, the same principles is good for any kind of twist that you're doing. Whether you're doing the twist in seated, whether you're doing the twist in standing, whether you're doing the twist in any other position, body position, okay? So I am sitting in my half lotus. You can sit in any way that you are comfortable in, even in cross-legged, anywhere. Now, usually when a person or a teacher asks us to twist, unmindfully, we just twist like this, okay? First and foremost, see that the body is leaning forward. I'm not maintaining Tadasana in the body. Tadasana is when the ear, the shoulder, the hip, and if you're standing, the feet are in a straight line. But if I am going to twist like this, leaning forward, there is no twist. I'm just leaning forward. So you align your shoulder and your ear above the hip, and then from here, you take the twist. When we take the twist, where should the twist come from? Mostly, for most of us, we happen to twist the body through our shoulders and our neck. So what happens when we are not aware? Our chest might still be facing forward and we might be twisting from the shoulder and the neck. And we think we are doing a twist. But this is overusing the neck and the shoulder. So instead what you can do, grow tall and learn to twist from the waist. Twist the waist, twist the waist, twist the waist. You should feel a little sensation around the navel. It's like your navel is trying to turn towards the right side. And notice I'm not leaning forward. Also, I'm not dumping my body down. If you dump your body down and then you twist, then your spine is made up of small vertebral bodies which are stacked one on top of the other. So if their body is down like it is right now, it will cause friction in the surface and it might cause damage or arthritis in the surface. When you lengthen the spine, you're creating space between the two vertebral bodies so that they can move freely without any kind of friction which can damage the surface of the spinal vertebral bodies. So keep your back straight, roll your shoulders back and down, learn to twist from the spine. My head can be here or maybe here. Then if I feel okay, I know that I have twisted maximum with my spine, then I can actually take my head there. But if you have cervical or any kind of neck issues, just keep your neck neutral. Neutral is your chin towards your chest and then slowly come back. I hope that is understood. I'll show you this twist in another position so that you can really understand this twist. And whenever you do the twist in the class, be mindful of how you are twisting. It will add good points to your practice. So coming into a low lunge position, what I'm doing is I am standing on the back knee. Okay, usually when we do an Anjaneyasana, we move our hips forward. But for this one, it is to show you the twist. And I'm supporting myself by keeping the toes tucked in. Usually when you are asked to twist, you will just twist like this. Okay. Now, today I'm telling you, hands onto your hip and just twist your spine first. Twist your spine. Twist your spine to the maximum. Now this is your maximum. Now add a little lever. So your hand is pulling the knee in and you're using that to twist more. See the difference? So you're using this to twist more. So my hand against the knee is acting as a lever to help me to twist more. Now I really feel the work in my sides and my belly. In my obliques, I feel the work now. And then if I'm ready, I can stretch this hand and I can stretch this hand. I can feel a real twist in the body. Otherwise, if we don't twist this way, what happens is we just feel it in the shoulders, overworking or overstressing the shoulders. I hope everybody's understood. Just let's do it once more so that it's clear to everybody once again. So I'm standing on the back knee. I'm first twisting my trunk. Twist your trunk. When the trunk is twisting, the knee should not collapse. The knee should move in the opposite direction. See, for a twist, one thing has to be stable and the other thing has to move. If both the things move, it is a turn. It is not a twist. For a twist to happen, one thing has to be stable and another thing has to turn. So if I turn my hip, my knee and my chest, it's a turn. It's not a twist. So I keep my hip and my knee without any movement. I turn only my trunk. So I'm resisting this knee to move with my hand and using that resistance to turn more from the spine. Once I have got this to the maximum, I can choose to stretch my hands or I can choose to keep my hands on the knees. Now this is a good twist, okay? So very important that you understand the concept of the twist. Two things move in opposite direction in a twist, okay? So if this thing, the lower and the upper body, both are moving in the same direction. So if I'm going to tell you how the twist is, if I'm going to turn my lower and my upper body, it is a turn. How does this become a twist? This becomes a twist when my feet and my hip do not move. I divide the upper and the lower halves into two parts. My lower half remains constant and the variable is the upper part. Then it becomes a twist, isn't it? But what do we do? What do we do? We tend to move the hip also when we do the twist. See, then it is a turn. So your hip should be facing forward. You should use more of your side body to do the twist. Then it is a good twist. I hope that is well understood. Let's move on to the last posture. Okay, just doing the very, very basic posture. Maybe in another video we can look into more postures. Just look into the last posture, which is the Setu Bandhasana. Very common mistake in Setu Bandhasana. When you go down, again this happens because of lack of awareness or maybe weakness in the body. Don't keep your feet together in Setu Bandhasana. Little gap between the feet. When you come up, most people, they keep the knees open out. So be mindful if that is happening in your practice, not because you're doing it, but because that is what the body is right now. Then place a block between the thighs and squeeze the block. That will keep the knees drawn towards each other. So when you do your Setu Bandhasana, it should be lifting up with your knees and your legs parallel and not with your knees out like this. But if this is happening and you don't have control on this, it's a good idea to place a block between your thighs. It's a good idea to place a block between the thighs. And you're not only holding the block, but you're pressing the block with your inner thighs. This will serve two purposes. One, the alignment will be correct in this posture. Two, the legs will work as much as they have to so that you can take your body higher and higher up. So when you have the block between the legs, you can actually really raise your hip up, which might not happen if your legs are not working. See how the hip has gone down. As soon as I activate my legs, I can raise my hip higher. My teacher used to always tell me, the taller the trees, the deeper the roots. So the higher you want to go, the grounded, the more lower you have to ground. Okay, so when you do your Setu Bandhasana, inhale, knees parallel to each other even when you go up. And then you can take your hands under your back, interlace the fingers, lift up and bring your chest towards the chin. Right? And then slowly you can come back and come down. Wonderful. Very nice. Last bit, let's work on the back bends. Okay? Just a little element of the back bends. There are a lot of things to make your back bends better and better. But let us just look into the basics, the common ones. Okay? When we do a back bend, it is very important that we are not bending back only by using the lower back. Lower back is the most flexible or quite a flexible part of the spine. And if our mid back, upper back is tight, most of the back bends we tend to take from the lower back and we tend to take from the cervical spine and then we overstress it. The whole back has to bend in a proportion so that you get a very organic back bend. What do I mean? I'm showing you with my toes tucked in. Traditionally or ideally, it is Uttanasana is done with the toes out, but just to show you. So what happens is, if you are not aware that you have to open up and create space in the thoracic spine and the shoulders and the arms, when you're doing a back bend, you are going back with a straight back like this, okay? This is not a back bend. So what you have to do, and also this is not a back bend, where you're putting too much pressure on the lower back. So you should feel that I'm using my hands here for you to understand. You should feel that your chest, your upper back is rolling in and the chest is expanding up. So this is the action, this action, this action. Okay? So you start bending from your mid back also so that you get a nice good back bend. So instead of your back bend looking like this, see where your hips are behind the knees, your back bend should look like this. But what happens mostly, we don't work on the mid back, we overuse our lower back and the head, and the back bend looks like this. So we push it straight and then we drop. Instead, your back bend should be like this, with the hip forward, mid back open, and then the head. I hope that is understood. Let me explain you back bend with one more very, very common posture. One of the postures or one of the asanas in the Surya Namaskar, Urdhva Hastasana. Very common mistake. So mostly, most of the students' Urdhva Hastasana looks like this. Did you see the hands? Did you see the head? Now compare it with this. Any difference? I'll show you the first one again. So students just tend to fling the head and the hands, causing a lot of pressure in the neck and the lower back and in the shoulders. And if you do 10 times like this in a class, and you do it every single day for a couple of months, I don't need to say what can happen to the body. So when you do a back bend, first stretch your hip flexor and your quadriceps. Push this forward, okay? So send your pelvis forward, lift the chest up, okay? Don't arch your back, tuck your tailbone under, send the pelvis forward, lift the chest up, really open up the mid back, and then start to stretch your hands, and then come back, right? So be aware right from the toe to the fingertips. So these were a few common asanas that you see and you practice regularly in the class. And somewhere, because either we don't pay attention or we are used to doing it in a certain way, we just do not follow the alignment or the right way of doing it. So please keep this video handy with you. Keep coming back to the basics. Keep taking out one asana from this. Keep practicing them and keep improving the good posture, the quality of your posture, improving the alignment and the way you are doing the posture.